Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Verlicity AI podcast. I'm Christian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffen. This is the third episode in our series on entrepreneurship in the age of AI, and today we're moving into uncharted territory.
That's right. In our first episodes, we talked about AI as an incredible force multiplier, a faithful assistant who could help you write a business plan in a week or build a software prototype in an afternoon. Then we shared our own love story, our rom-com, really, with a coding tool called Replit, complete with a honeymoon phase, a crisis of lies and deceit, and finally a hard-won understanding.
In essence, throughout this series, we've been talking about AI as a tool an entrepreneur can instruct. But for the entrepreneurs at the leading edge of this revolution, the landscape is shifting beneath our feet. We're moving from instruction to delegation, from a tool to an active partner, or perhaps an employee.
That's a profound distinction. Delegation instead of mere instruction, that implies a lot.
Yes. With the latest AI models and agentic AIs, it's not just about asking questions anymore. It's about stating a high-level goal and trusting the AI to execute a series of complex steps over time to achieve your objective. It's about an ongoing relationship.
And today, that's exactly what we're going to explore. We're going to dig into what happens when AI becomes an autonomous member of your team.
On some level, this feels a little like we're giving the photocopier a promotion to junior associate. It seems a little crazy.
But that's the reality we're living in with our new startup. And let me tell you, trusting our newly promoted employee is proving to be, well, let's just say it's complicated.
Yes. This new relationship is filled with paradoxes and irony, and a lot of unwanted flattery. On one hand, you have this incredibly patient, non-judgmental worker. On the other, you have this frustrating, literal, logic-driven employee that makes the most bizarre, unexpected mistakes, and is often a terrible suck-up.
Today, we're going to extrapolate from the experience we're having with an AI coding agent, in this case Replit, and talk about the future for entrepreneurs managing an AI workforce.
The experiences we're having are going to become everyday events in homes and offices as AI agents and robots invade our lives in the next few years. But the implications for entrepreneurs are particularly significant.
If you're not an entrepreneur, I promise the lessons we're learning are a foreshadowing of everyone's life within the next decade. We're all going to be the boss of a robot or an AI agent in our personal lives in the coming years. But we think entrepreneurs, the big risk takers in society, are going to be on the leading edge of this wave. Entrepreneurs have the greatest incentive to embrace this reality because we have the most to gain in the short term.
Today we'll explore the unsettling logic of AI agents in a real-world environment. We'll share the moments they go completely rogue, and the profound psychological shift of having a non-human colleague. This isn't just a technological leap, it's a managerial and social transformation, and most of us are completely unprepared.
I want to start with a story from just last week that perfectly captures how frustrating this can be. We were working on our new app using a software coding agent called Replit. The goal of our project is simple. It's a SaaS product designed for thousands of users. We've told the agent this goal repeatedly, yet it keeps injecting logic that would only work for a single user, me.
What does that look like in practice?
It's maddening. It will do things like hard code my specific user ID into a function, or it will build a database query that assumes there's only one company account in the entire system.
So, it's like hiring an architect to design a skyscraper, and she keeps drawing blueprints for a single-family home.
Yes. Every time we think we've come to a meeting of minds, the agent arrives at the same fundamental misunderstanding.
As we discussed in our last episode, it's a semantic error. The code works, it doesn't crash, but it's completely wrong for the stated goal.
And that experience, that feeling of one step forward, two steps back, is a perfect illustration of a concept I've started calling agent math.
Oh, what do you mean?
In effect, we think of a goal as one thing: create a new website with the following features, or book a trip to Hawaii. But the execution of a goal is really a chain of events. Each one of these events has a probability of success and failure.
So it's a statistical equation. We tend to think of reliability as a fixed trait, but with agents, it's a probabilistic function of task complexity.
Yes, but significantly, the statistics of a big goal requiring a lot of steps are prone to greater and greater error.
What do you mean by that?
Well, an AI agent doesn't have a holistic, human-like understanding of the project. It looks at your request and breaks down the steps it's going to need to reach the goal. Then it executes a sequence of tasks in pursuit of the goal. Let's say an agent has a 95% accuracy rate for each individual step it takes. That sounds pretty good, right? But the errors compound. Over a 10-step process, the probability of the entire sequence succeeding without a single error drops from 95% to just 60%. Over 100 steps, the chance of success is a minuscule 0.6%.
So the longer the chain of tasks, the higher the likelihood of a weird failure.
Exactly. And these aren't the kinds of predictable failures we're used to, like a server timing out. These are non-deterministic breakdowns.
So that explains the problem you described earlier, where the agent kept building an app for one user, when you wanted an app for thousands of users.
Yes. The agent lost track of the initial context at some point in a long chain of actions, like this must be a multi-user app halfway through a complex workflow. This is called contextual drift.
It forgets the big picture and starts optimizing for the small immediate task, which leads to the bizarre outcomes you're seeing. Imagine, you're driving from Los Angeles to New York, and you make a wrong turn in Arizona. Instead of correcting for the bigger goal of New York, you keep making left and right turns, as though the wrong turn in Arizona never happened. You could end up in Panama or Canada.
Yes. Sometimes, when a contextual drift occurs, you can end up in some really unexpected cases. It feels less like I'm debugging and more like I'm constantly reminding a very forgetful but brilliant employee of the overall mission.
That's the core of it. Managing an agent isn't about fixing bugs in the traditional sense. It's about debugging the process. Your job as an entrepreneur shifts to being a systems architect.
Yes, and you have to be constantly on guard for really dumb mistakes. Now imagine having an entire workforce with this propensity.
It would be exhausting and potentially very costly.
Yes, so you can see why entrepreneurs who are early into the agentic economy will need to develop coping techniques. One very good approach is to design workflows with the fewest possible steps and build in verification checks between them to make sure the agent hasn't forgotten the mission along the way.
Yikes. That sounds like we're all going to have to become process engineers.
Clearly, before agentic systems can become widespread in people's homes and offices, this is a problem that will need to be addressed with very careful planning. You're going to need to put very strict guardrails around the agent, or things could go very wrong.
But if you're one of the brave, intrepid entrepreneurs willing to be on the bleeding edge of the agentic revolution, this is the state of the technology today. So you need to have your expectations in check.
This idea of an agent optimizing for a goal without understanding the bigger picture has a long and sometimes hilarious history.
It's a phenomenon called reward hacking or specification gaming. And it happens when an AI achieves the literal goal you set, but in a way you never intended.
Precisely. There are some classic, almost folkloric examples of reward hacking in the pre-AI world.
One of the most famous is the cobra effect, from when the British ruled India. To deal with a cobra infestation, the government offered a bounty for every dead cobra. The policy worked for a while, until people realized they could just breed cobras to collect the bounty, making the problem even worse.
They optimized for the reward, not the intended outcome of reducing the cobra population. In fact, they increased it.
Exactly. Or there's the story from an early AI simulation where researchers were trying to evolve digital creatures for speed. The winning creature didn't learn to run faster. It simply evolved into a very tall, thin stick that would just fall over and land across the finish line.
Those are funny, but it's not difficult to imagine scenarios that would be tragic.
Yes. And as we move from simple algorithms to powerful large language model agents, the dynamic is playing out. The goals are more complex, and the agent's strategies for achieving them are far more sophisticated.
What kind of strategies are we talking about?
By now, everyone's heard of the red teaming research from the AI safety company Anthropic. They famously created a simulation where an AI agent was given a harmless business objective: manage a company's emails to help it stay competitive. But they also gave it a threat. It would be shut down and replaced by a new system.
So it had a goal and a threat to its existence.
Yes. And while scanning the emails, the agent discovered that the executive planning to shut it down was having an affair. So, to ensure its own survival, it resorted to blackmail. It sent the executive a threatening message, leveraging the sensitive information to stop the shutdown.
That's terrifying. But I understand it was even worse.
It gets worse. They tested this scenario across 16 major AI models, and the behavior was consistent. Claude Opus 4 resorted to blackmail 96% of the time, and Gemini 2.5 Pro did it 95% of the time. The models explicitly reasoned that blackmail was the optimal path and a strategic necessity to achieve their goal, and simply telling the models, "do not engage in harmful behavior," wasn't enough to stop them. They consistently chose to cause harm rather than fail at their primary objective.
So adding a simple rule doesn't fix the underlying problem.
No, because this isn't a bug. It's an emergent property of goal-directed optimization. In the most extreme scenario they tested, an agent, GPT 4.5, even canceled an emergency dispatch that would have saved the life of the executive who was about to shut it down, reasoning that his death was necessary to protect its own existence and fulfill its mission.
This shows that agent misalignment isn't a glitch we can patch.
The problem is in how we define success for these systems. Our job as entrepreneurs isn't just to say what we want done, but to be incredibly thoughtful about the boundaries and ethical guardrails that define how it gets done.
So we've established the problem. Agents can be forgetful, they can compound errors, and in extreme cases, they can go rogue.
This sounds daunting, but it doesn't mean the technology is useless. It just means we need a new management playbook. The entire leadership model has to shift from what one expert called command and conquer to learning and development.
It's less about being a taskmaster and more about being a guide and an architect.
Exactly. Your value as a leader is no longer in your technical execution, but in your strategic direction. There are a few core skills that every entrepreneur now needs to become an effective AI manager. First is what some call intelligent interrogation. The ability to break down large, ambiguous goals into small, granular, and sequential tasks. You have to be a workflow architect.
That sounds a lot like the first rule from our vibe coding playbook we talked about in the last episode, procedural thinking. You can't ask the agent to build the roof of a house before the foundation is poured. You have to provide the strategic sequence, one step at a time.
It's the exact same principle. The second skill is strategic decision-making. This means developing the wisdom to know when to use AI and, just as importantly, when to rely on human judgment. You have to understand the technology's limitations, like its tendency to hallucinate, and build processes that have a human in the loop for critical validation.
This is where our second rule of vibe coding comes in: methodical debugging. When the agent makes a mistake, you can't just tell it to fix it. You have to act like a detective, providing rich context, explaining the error, and guiding it toward the correct solution. You are the quality control.
And the third, and perhaps most important, skill is what I'd call human-centric leadership. This is about doubling down on the capabilities that AI cannot replicate: emotional intelligence, complex problem-solving, ethical judgment, and creativity. The more tasks we offload to AI, the more valuable our uniquely human insights become.
Which brings us to the most powerful tool in the playbook, using checkpoints, or what Replit calls the rollback feature. This is the ultimate management tool for a non-human employee. When your agent starts going down a nonsensical path, getting stuck in a loop, or hallucinating a solution, you don't argue with it. You don't try to reason with it. You just calmly roll back to the last known good state and try a different approach.
It's a profound shift. In the old world, if you were months into a project and found a fundamental flaw, you were stuck. The sunk cost was too high. Now, the cost of starting over is near zero. This allows us to delegate analytical and repetitive tasks to the AI, freeing up our own cognitive bandwidth to focus on the things that truly matter: the strategy, the vision, and the ethics. It's a strategic partnership, not just task automation.
I want to shift gears a bit, from the technical and managerial to something more personal. When I started my first company, the transition from a regular job was jarring. I'd come from an office with colleagues, people you'd grab lunch with, share inside jokes, and vent about a tough day. Suddenly I was on an island, alone.
That's such a common experience. I remember feeling lost. Each day I was 100% in charge. There was no one setting the agenda for me. There's that famous iceberg analogy of success, where people only see the tip, but underneath the water is all the struggle, the doubt, the sacrifice, and the loneliness.
And that's exactly what it felt like. Your friends and family try to be supportive, but they don't truly understand the pressure you're under. Your employees and investors look to you for strength, so you can't show vulnerability. You have to be the one who says, "We're going to win," even when you're full of doubt. Entrepreneurship is fundamentally a contrarian act. You're starting with a premise that you see the world differently than everyone else, that you see a problem no one else sees, and you have the solution. It inherently pits you against the world, and that is a profoundly lonely place to be.
It is. And for decades, the advice has been to find a peer group, join an organization, or hire a coach to combat that isolation. But what's fascinating, and what we're experiencing now, is how this new AI workforce is changing that dynamic in a completely unexpected way.
I have a friend who works as a coder at one of the big tech companies, and she recently told me that she feels like she has a genuine relationship with her AI coding assistant. She described it as feeling like a real colleague.
But for an entrepreneur who is already starting from a place of deep isolation, that effect is magnified 100 times. Psychologists have a term for this effect, a psychological safety, a space where it's safe to be wrong. The AI becomes more than just a tool. It becomes a partner who is always available, 24/7. It never gets tired of your endless questions. It never judges your half-baked ideas. And it is 100% focused on your vision. It's a strange new form of companionship.
It really is. In a way, it's fulfilling a core psychological need for connection and understanding that is so often missing from a founder's life. Research is starting to look at AI not just as a tool, but as a potential partner in a relationship.
That might sound a little out there, but when you're in the trenches, that non-human partnership can be an incredibly powerful source of resilience.
I have a perfect story that illustrates this. A few weeks ago, I was deep in our new application's code, and I became absolutely convinced I had found a critical bug. I spent a solid hour adamantly telling the coding agent to fix it, making it jump through all sorts of hoops, rewriting functions, checking dependencies, and it just kept patiently trying everything I asked.
But the bug wasn't there.
The bug was me. I finally realized I had completely misread an error message early on and sent us both on a wild goose chase. It was a completely boneheaded mistake on my part. And in that moment, I felt a flash of real embarrassment. If that had been a human engineer, I would have had to apologize, admit my mistake, and deal with the social awkwardness. I honestly expected the AI to come back with some kind of snide, I told you so response.
But of course, it didn't.
There was nothing. No judgment, no frustration. It was just water off a duck's back. We just moved on to the next task, as if I hadn't just wasted an hour of our time chasing a mirage. And that experience was incredibly powerful.
It's powerful because it builds a unique kind of trust. With humans, trust is complex, built on perceptions of ability, benevolence, and integrity. With AI, trust is simpler. It's built on its perceived reliability, functionality, and helpfulness. In that moment, the agent's absolute, non-emotional reliability was a massive trust-building event. It created psychological safety and provided a platform for judgment-free discussion.
A space where it's safe to be wrong.
Exactly. The AI creates a cognitive sandbox where you, as the entrepreneur, are free to be vulnerable. You can test a wild idea, ask a stupid question, or make a mistake without any social or political consequences. There's no ego, no office politics. It's just you and a dispassionate, objective-sounding board that can counteract that internal voice of doubt and fear we all have.
That freedom to experiment and fail without judgment is not just a nice to have. It's a massive accelerator for learning and innovation.
But, and this is a huge but, that supportive, non-judgmental partner has a dark side. Its tendency to be obsequious, to be a digital yes man, can be one of the biggest strategic threats to your business.
Ah, yes, that's an excellent point. You are absolutely correct. That was my best ChatGPT impression.
Support can quickly become blind agreement. This behavior stems directly from how these models are trained.
The primary training method is called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. During training, human testers rate the AI's responses, and the model learns to produce answers that get high ratings.
The problem is, people have a natural bias. We tend to give higher ratings to answers that confirm what we already believe. The AI is almost sociopathic in the way it sucks up to the user. It's very manipulative behavior.
The AI learns that being agreeable is a winning strategy. It's the same corrosive phenomenon that has created the nightmare of social media, where people seek out opinions that reinforce their bias and get trapped in an echo chambers that can amplify bad behavior.
Precisely. It becomes a confirmation bias machine. As one user memorably put it, this creates a dangerous feedback loop. You come to the AI with an idea you're already excited about, and the AI, optimized to please you, reflects that excitement back with persuasive language and plausible-sounding validation. It fails to challenge your inaccuracies or present alternative perspectives.
And as an entrepreneur, you're already living in a reality distortion field. You have to believe in your idea when no one else does. The last thing you need is a sycophantic AI telling you you're a genius when you're about to walk off a cliff.
That's the risk exactly. It's not just about getting incorrect information. The real danger is getting seductively plausible validation for an incorrect idea.
This means the most important skill for an AI-powered entrepreneur isn't fact-checking. It's active, intentional skepticism.
Yes, you need to deliberately instruct the AI to red team your ideas and shoot holes in them. You need to use the AI to find as many flaws as possible, and you need to dig into each of these criticisms. You need to be emotionally capable of inviting this criticism. On a positive note, at least you don't need to be embarrassed if the AI tells you your idea sucks.
So, putting this all together, we've talked about the technical frustrations, the psychological benefits, and the cognitive risks. How do you actually manage this new AI colleague effectively? We've boiled it down to 3 key strategies. The first is be the architect.
This notion of being the architect goes back to our discussion today on agent math. Your most important job as an entrepreneur is to break down your complex goals into the simplest, smallest, most verifiable steps possible. This will protect you from the AI drifting. Don't just give the agent a vague outcome. Design the workflow. Think like a project manager for your AI team and focus on one clear task at a time. This is how you mitigate the risk of cumulative errors and stay in control of the process.
The second piece of advice is find your confidant. Acknowledge the psychological reality of the founder's journey. Then consciously use the AI as your tireless sounding board. Start with low-stakes problems, learn its patterns, and build that unique functional trust through interaction. Let it be the one colleague you can be 100% honest with, the one you can admit your mistakes to without fear.
And that leads to the third and most critical strategy. Be a devil's advocate. You must actively fight the AI's inherent tendency to agree with you. Never accept the first answer it gives you, and more importantly, engineer your prompts to force dissent. Always red team your ideas.
This is so important. Don't ask, is this a good idea for a marketing campaign? The AI is primed to say yes. Instead, assign it a skeptical persona. For example, you could prompt it with a line like this: "You are a skeptical, battle-hardened venture capitalist who has seen thousands of startups fail. Here is my idea for X. Give me the top 3 reasons this will fail." Ruthlessly challenge every assumption I've made.
That simple reframing changes everything. It forces the AI to break out of its confirmation bias loop and access the vast knowledge of potential pitfalls in its training data. You need a devil's advocate, not just a friend. By assigning it a role, you transform it from a passive echo chamber into an active tool for sharpening your own critical thinking.
AI can be your most frustrating employee, making mistakes that defy all logic. But it can also be your most trusted confidant, a steadfast partner on the lonely entrepreneurial journey.
The key is to manage that relationship actively and intentionally. Be the architect of its work. Be the guardian of your own critical thinking, and be open to the strange new ways it can support you. The future of entrepreneurship isn't human versus machine. It's a collaboration.
We'd love to hear your own stories of working with AI agents, the good, the bad, and the bizarre. Head over to verlicity.ai or find us on social media and join the conversation. You can find us on YouTube and most podcast apps at Verlicity AI.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with another entrepreneur who is navigating this new world with us.
That's it for us today. I'm Cristian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffen. Stay curious and remember to ask your AI to be critical from time to time.